Is there a feeling of monotony when it comes to the regular season and your football team is very good? I don't mean that to imply that there's a lack of interest on my part. Obviously, I look forward to the games. I go to all the home games. I've traveled to 2 road games already this year. Like, I look forward to it. Of course I do. I want to be present for this season, especially considering how good the Bills are. I want to remember every moment of this. But what I mean is that there's almost something routine about the regular season. When you know the payoff is in January, obviously you want to win games in the regular season. You want to win your division. You want to secure home field advantage because that all matters come January. But it's just a foregone conclusion that you're going to be playing games in January. And I imagine that this is how good teams have felt over the years. The Patriots, of course, felt that way for the larger part of 2 decades with Tom Brady. The Chiefs probably feel that way now with Mahomes. The Packers even have probably felt that way with Aaron Rodgers at points throughout his career. So they've hit this rut recently. Of course, they've always had struggles in the playoffs themselves. But this is new to us. For the larger part of 2 decades, the Bills were terrible until Josh Allen got here. And now there's something routine about the regular season. It's just this climb to get to the playoffs, but we know we're going to be there. And in years past, it's been a climb to prove that we're capable of getting there, to prove that we're competitive, to prove that we're good. There's just been that's where this whole Buffalo versus everybody thing kind of dawned from, and the whole blue collar thing. That's where Buffalo got the reputation, the Bills Mafia. We're diehards. We know they've been bad, but we are diehard fans. Now, we're still diehard fans. We're a little bit smug about it, understandably so, because they're so good, and this is an entirely new feeling to us, and we haven't been able to do it for almost 2 decades. But, I said all of that to say that obviously I care about the regular season. But there's points where it seems like you can almost sleepwalk through it. And I don't want the team to take that approach. I don't think the team takes that approach. But maybe they took that approach in the second half on Sunday night against Green Bay. Maybe they weren't actively thinking about it, but the Bills sleptwalked through the second half. Let's be real. At halftime, the Bills are up 24-7. They have a phenomenal half of football. 3 touchdowns, a field goal right at the buzzer to go up 24. Like I said, to go up 24-7, and right then, I'm thinking they're made here. The Packers. It's going to be a climb for the Packers to get to 24, and they're not going to stop us in the second half. They did. They did stop the Bills in the second half. They only allowed 3 points, but the Bills' defense was up to the task. The Packers are totally bereft of weapons on offense. Romeo Doubs had a really nice touchdown, had a couple of really nice catches. Samori Toure, in only his second career game, gets a deep touchdown, but there's only 6 minutes left at that point, and the Bills are still up by 10. So the Bills win by 10, and really only played, at least on offense, a half. They only seriously played a half of football on offense. They had an off game and won by 10. So, yeah, the Bills can get routine at times. Here we go again. Of course we're up 17.5. We're very good. We're going to win this game. That's all I mean by that. That's my entire point. But obviously, I want to talk a little bit about the Green Bay game. I want to talk about the trade deadline, and then obviously the Jets as well, to kind of continue my thoughts here on the Green Bay game. Like I said, the Bills really had an off game and still won by 10. That's impressive in and of itself. Allen completed only 13 passes. I usually don't like these type of comparisons. If you told me this, but Josh completes 13 passes. The Packers run for 208 yards or something like that. What was the official total? Rushing yards. Why can't I find it? Looks like, 208. 208 rushing yards for the Packers. That's the most the Bills have given up all year. The only other time they've given up more than 100 was to the Ravens. And, Lamar Jackson had a chunk of that himself. So, Aaron Jones was fantastic. A.J. Dillon had a couple of nice carries as well. Jones was the majority of that, averaged over 7 yards per carry, but Dillon averaged over 5 himself. 208 Packers rushing yards. Josh Allen has 13 completions and 2 picks. You're probably thinking, that's a loss. But nope, it was never really in doubt. That's what comes with being good. That's the territory of being as good as the Bills are. That you can make mistakes like this and other teams don't make you pay for it. This is something I bring up all the time. I mean, I might have even, did I even talk about this last week? Like, good teams, when fortunate things happen to them, like a tipped interception by Aaron Rodgers or, what else? Penalties, like offensive pass interference penalties that happened to Tunyon. Like, that is not in the Bills' control. They make you pay for it. The Packers are kicking field goals or attempting field goals. They're going forward on 4th and 1 when, they could kick and keep playing. I don't know. I guess I didn't hate that decision at the time because I think they were down by 17 in the second half. But, you could butterfly effect this. They scored the touchdown later on. They would have had a real look at that. It changes things throughout the course of the game. So I don't want to say that that's definitively how that would have gone. But the Bills make you pay for penalties, for turnovers, for stuff like that. And they're good enough on defense that they can cover that up when they make their own mistakes. Because Allen was intercepted a couple of times. One, just a terrible pass across his body in the second half. Trying to make something happen, and Rasul Douglas just sitting on it. I mean, that is rookie stuff. Like, come on. The other one, again, just trying to make something happen inside the 5, and he throws one that Jair Alexander intercepts at, was it right in the end zone? I believe it might have been inside the 5 as well. I don't remember. I just don't remember if there was a touchback after that. But now it's going to bother me, so I'm going to look it up. Yeah, they started at their own 5-yard line. They went 95 yards and scored a touchdown. That was the two-rate touchdown. But, I get it. Like, dude, just throw it away. Josh, he knows. You hear him after the game, he knows that he's got to just throw that away. He was upset with himself, making a couple of mistakes. And he's deserving of criticism for that. He's deserving of it. But he holds himself to a higher standard, so hopefully he just takes that experience and just applies it, in the future. He is such a competitive guy and oftentimes can make plays like that happen. But a good team will make you pay for it. And the Packers are pretty good on defense, don't get me wrong. I know the Bills didn't really have any respect for that in the first half because they went 61 yards touchdown, 51 yards touchdown, 80 yards touchdown, 56 yards at the end of the half, to a deep ball to Diggs towards the end of the half to set up the field goal in less than a minute. But the Packers are actually pretty good on defense. They were obviously down. Devondre Campbell got hurt. Who's the other linebacker that got ejected? Quay Walker was ejected for shoving a practice squad player, a non-in-uniform player, on the sidelines, which is just really stupid. Obviously, the Packers were just. It was a chippy game. Chippy's a word that people like to use for that. Packers were kind of just. I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to say the Bills were in their heads necessarily, but I mean, Jair is a fantastic player. Okay, first of all, Jair Alexander's awesome. I don't think he gave up a single reception all day. And, Bills fans were like, Diggs went for 108 yards. Yeah, that was all on Rasul Douglas. And, or Eric Stokes. But it certainly wasn't on Jair. Jair was fantastic. But celebrating the interception when you're down 17, making the, was he like this, a hammer or a sword or something? Dude, time and score, man. Time and place, look at the scoreboard. That's the thing, I guess. Scoreboard, bro. But he was in the Bills' heads, too, a little bit. He drew a penalty on Gabe Davis later. Diggs, him and Diggs were going at it, obviously. That might stem a little bit from their history when Diggs was in Minnesota. I think they might have overlapped there for a year, but whatever. Scoreboard. 27-17 Bills, 6-1. What did the Bills do over the week? The trade deadline was this week. It's something I didn't really talk about last week, and I kind of wish I should have in retrospect. The Bills seem to have this, I don't know if I want to call it strange, but it's like they're hungry for running backs. And I don't really know why. They want to run the ball effectively, but Devin Singletary kind of does that for them, right? I mean, he's averaging over 5 yards a carry on the season. That's wrong. I apologize, that's wrong. 4.5 yards per carry on the season. He just hasn't scored a rushing touchdown yet. Josh is right behind him. The 323 for Singletary, 306 for Allen. But they were rumored in on McCaffrey, and Brandon Beane admitted as much that they were in on McCaffrey. They were rumored in on Kamara. Beane did deny that, or that they at least called on Kamara. There's offseason talk about Breece Hall, and they end up drafting James Cook, so I know they're interested because they've used a third-round pick on Singletary, they used a third-round pick on Zach Moss, they used a second-round pick on James Cook. They are interested in possibly calling on Christian McCaffrey. They want to be better at that position. They haven't done a weird, or I want to say foolish thing by paying a running back absurd amounts of money. But they go out and they reach out to the Colts and they trade Moss for Nyheim Hines, who a player I've liked not only in fantasy football but in real football over the past couple of years. He came into the league the same time Josh Allen did, and he's been good. He's a good pass-catching running back. The Bills don't typically throw to the running back that much. I guess Singletary has 23 receptions in 7 games, so that's 3 or so a game. But I don't know why you want to spend the 6th-round pick on Nyheim Hines when you spent the 2nd-round pick on James Cook. Maybe there's a lack of trust there with James Cook, and that's understandable. He fumbled a time or two, but that was like week 1, his first career touch. So maybe there's an element of trust there that comes with the coaching staff and the player. But James Cook had a pretty nice day on Sunday night. I thought that they were playing him to see if they needed to trade for a running back, and then he had a 41-yard reception. Which is he catches it kind of over his shoulder, turns upfield. It was a nice play. I'm thinking, they're going to be happy with James Cook now. They've spent a 2nd-round pick on this guy. He's an investment. They're going to play him a little bit more. But Nyheim Hines represents a threat to that. My initial thought getting Nyheim Hines is it doesn't really change the Bills' projected win total at all. But, he's a sure-handed kick returner, punt returner, which the Bills kind of lack right now without Micah Hyde was their sure-handed punt returner. They've been using Khalil Shakir. Maybe they don't want to necessarily go that route. They could use him on kick returns, like I just said, instead of Isaiah McKenzie. He'll have a role. But I would really like to see how good James Cook can be. And I think this is going to eat into his workload a little bit, which was already limited to begin with. So, I don't know. I guess I'm indifferent. Okay, sure. Would I like to see James Cook play more? Sure. But you brought in a player who I've admired and I think is good. So, sure. I don't think it makes them much better. It certainly doesn't make them any worse. The other acquisition was Dean Marlowe, who was with the Bills obviously in years past. They trade him for, which might be the last pick of the draft, a 7th-round pick, other than compensatory picks in the 7th round. That's going to be maybe the 10th pick from the end of the draft. So it really is essentially next to nothing. It might represent an injury to Poyer, who we were told is day-to-day. Ian Rappaport says he's week-to-week. We'll see what happens there. It's his left elbow again. I remember seeing the play. He kind of leapt at Robert Tonyan, and he hit him squarely with his arm, right here at the bend. And that's where his elbow injury from training camp stems from. This might have been the first game where he wasn't wearing that big arm brace that he's been wearing, and he might have paid for it. I hope it's only a week or so injury. The fact that he hasn't gone on IR is a good thing, but that remains to be seen. That's going to leave, the only real big plays the Bills have given up on defense this year have been to Waddle and Toure, and that was with Damar Hamlin and Jaquan Johnson in the game. So that's probably what they're looking at again this Sunday against the Jets. Before I turn to that, a couple other things happened in the trade deadline. Marlowe is depth, essentially. A guy who knows the McDermott system and represents depth because they don't really have anybody else behind Jaquan and Damar. So the other things that happened in the trade deadline, the Dolphins get Bradley Chubb. That, I suppose, would be the most notable thing because it's division rival. Their Super Bowl odds didn't change at all in any sports books just by getting Bradley Chubb. Does he represent a better pass rusher? Of course. He hasn't had a stellar pass rushing season since his rookie year, but he's dealt with some injuries. The Dolphins are going for it. I can't blame them for doing that. But this is kind of what happens like when you're on top. Good teams try to get better. They chase you with their draft picks. They traded firsts for, they luckily had an extra first they were able to trade up to get for Jalen Waddle. They traded firsts for Tyreek Hill. They traded another first for Bradley Chubb. They're chasing big time. They're chasing the Bills, and they've certainly got some talent. I'm impressed by what they've done. I'm not sure. I still view them as a significant threat, and I should probably. Maybe I should. They beat the Bills in Week 3, but we've talked about how that was kind of the perfect storm, and I don't know. Maybe I should be threatened by the Jets. Let's talk about the Jets. The Jets are the team the Bills are playing this week, of course. The Jets are 5-3. They are coming off a pretty tough loss at home to New England. Bottom line, Zach Wilson's going to throw you the ball. If you're the defense, Zach Wilson's going to make a mistake. He's going to throw you the ball. He made more than 3 against the Patriots this past Sunday. The Patriots just only intercepted 3. The Jets are now different without Breece Hall. Obviously, Breece Hall was a fantastic rookie for them. He had gained over 450 yards in 7 games, added a couple of touchdowns, 4 touchdowns to be exact, 5 actually because one was receiving. But yeah, almost 700 total yards in 7 games. So he was their threat. Then he goes down with a torn ACL, and Michael Carter just doesn't bring the same style. Neither does James Robinson, who they traded for. So they're going to have to rely on Zach Wilson a little bit more, and I'm not sure how good Zach Wilson is. I know he can throw the ball a mile. He's got incredible arm strength. I've seen him drop a dime into Garrett Wilson. I watched him do it last week. But then he just throws into triple coverage on a pass that has no chance, and he's intercepted. So until he can fix that, correct that, and I don't know what causes him to do that, he's not new to the sport. He's obviously been playing his whole life. He played through college. He's in, year 2 now, right? Whatever year he's in. Year 2, I guess. I don't know why I couldn't think of that off the top of my head. You know not to throw middle of the field. I mean, Josh just did it against the Packers. So it's going to happen, of course. It's going to happen. There's, you get the competitive juices flowing, and you're just like, I can do this, bang. And it backfires. But it happens to Zach Wilson multiple times per game. I mean, he just wasn't throwing for really any yards when they had Breece Hall in there. So I'm just looking at his game log right now. He threw for 355 on Sunday and 2 touchdowns and 3 picks. But there's stories to that game. They were almost going to be up 17-3 on a pick 6 that was called back by a roughing the passer penalty, and they didn't. And then Ramondre Stevenson ran all over them, and they ended up losing because Zach Wilson just couldn't put them over the top. Credit to the Jets defense. They allowed, they held the Patriots to a couple field goals when they needed to, but it keeps coming back to Zach Wilson. I mean, in his season debut, he was 18 of 36, 252 against Pittsburgh. They did win the game. They throttled Miami the following week, but Zach Wilson, 14 of 21 for 210, no touchdowns, just the 1 rushing. Green Bay, 10 of 18 for 110. They win by 17. Denver, 16 of 26, 121, no touchdowns. They win by 7. That's going to catch up to you. It caught up to them this past week against New England. I think the Bills are a good enough team to make them pay for it. And I want to give credit to the Jets defense because Quinnen Williams is turning into a superstar. Carl Lawson, fresh off of his Achilles injury, second on the team in sacks. He's impressive. Sauce Gardner is a real deal. I mean, Sauce Gardner's been fantastic. Usually there's a slow transition for cornerbacks, not for Sauce Gardner. It has helped DJ Reed on the other side of the field. CJ Mosley was a stud, is a stud. But when I say was a stud, he has held Josh Allen down. There was was it 2019? As soon as CJ Mosley led the game, the Bills scored 2 touchdowns and came back and won the game opening week. There's talent. There's certainly talent on the Jets defense and on the Jets offense. I don't know what's going on with Elijah Moore, really. I would love to know the story there. There's something more than meets the surface. But Garrett Wilson is awesome. Breece Hall, that's unfortunate. There's talent there, but it's on Zach Wilson. And the Bills are 12.5-point favorites on the road for a reason. Probably because despite all the injuries, despite, Poyer, Hyde obviously been out, Matt Milano looks like he's not even going to play. Tre'Davious White, we'll see. I tend to think the Bills might hold Tre'Davious White out because MetLife Stadium has that reputation for knee injuries, for like the bad knee injuries. But we'll see how that goes. I think he's almost certainly going to play the following week against Minnesota. We'll see in what capacity. Maybe he plays this week. I don't know. But it's just going to keep coming back to quarterback play, to Zach Wilson. 12.5-point spread, that's why. So I'm going to pick the Bills to beat the Jets. I'm going to go with 33-20. I think the Jets have enough talent on defense to hold the Bills to some field goals, but I think the Bills are still going to win by 13. Sounds about right. Guys, I made an extra long video today probably because I squeezed in some trade deadline stuff. But thank you for coming this far. Hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter handle and YouTube username are the same. Enjoy your weekend. As always, above all else, go Bills.